Yeah, and that's so good too because it's funny. Um, Even myself, I grew up in the Bahamas, so I grew up in this kind of environment where it's mostly people like me, so I didn't have to deal with a lot of the stress as far as I was competing against other black folk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's so it goes no big deal. But when I got to the States and I moved to Maryland, and even in Georgia, when I first came down to Georgia, I realized, it was a totally different vibe. Like a lot of the like my counselor, for example, she was black, and I
Mhm.
told her, when I sat down with her and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about want to getting into engineering," and she basically flat out told me, "I don't think that's career is good for you. I don't think you have
Mhm.
the brain power to be an engineer." I'm like,
Wow.
what? And so she said, "Yeah, you need to pick something else." And she was black,
Yeah,
and I was at
yeah,
the time. It was not like I was struggling in school. I was making pretty much A's and B's, and
yeah.
in all of my my science class. I was making
Mhm.
algebra, and I was making A's and all that stuff. But she just came out and said, "No, I don't think that's a good career for you. I don't think you can handle that. The technology." So I was like, "No, I'm not listening to you."
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did it. Yeah.
No, when I did get into tech though, it was hard. It was
Mhm.
hard, but we had a lot of resources available, and they had this group called OMED, but basically that's a resource for you to go to when you feel like you're struggling and so forth. But overall the experience was good. But even after I graduated, going into the workplace, I've always felt like you said it's like this. I'm always trying to prove myself
Mhm.
because first impression is, and I'm not saying that for everybody, but some people that I work with, or, especially these guys that I work with, these were scientists. These back in the 60s, and so they were older gentlemen,
Mhm.
and so I always wondered, like, how are they going to accept me? But I was blessed because God opened up one of the scientists' as hard as a white guy, older gentleman. He kind of pulled me in as a mentor and just kind of
Mhm.
helped guide me through that whole process. And he could for whatever reason he could relate to how I felt, and I could talk to him about it, which was fascinating. But he kind of helped me navigate through that to where I felt a little bit more comfortable in that environment. But still, it was hard because always in the back of your mind you're thinking, okay, I need to outperform and be on my p's and q's all the
Mhm.
time, and
Yeah.
that can be very stressful because
Yeah.
so I can only imagine. But the cool thing about you though, I mean, you took a big step, going from that environment to establishing your organization. So,
Mhm.
what prompted you? Was there something during that time that prompted you to go ahead and make that change? Because that's pretty abrupt, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can imagine that when you started, you had nothing. You started from scratch,
Yes,
right?
yes. And there was so much going on in my life during that time, and this is podcast is called Guide Dreamers. I can't ne- like I can't neglect the fact that I was had like my corporate journey and my professional journey, and yes, there I was feeling all of these things about like not belonging, but then I was also going honestly on a journey with God and my relationship with God. And so the job that had me on the road every week really meant that I could not really establish any community here in Atlanta. So I moved to Atlanta from Texas when I graduated college, and I didn't really know anyone here. And so, being that I'm gone 4 or 5 days of the week, uh, I'm spending all my time at work and on the weekends. I mean, at the time I was clubbing on the weekends, and then I would go to church on Sunday. And so, like, I wasn't really making any friends. Wasn't forming any community. But God, of course, like He does to all of us, was chasing after me,
Mhm.
and He used that. Um, the discouragement that I felt on the job, he used like this thing that was happening every day of me feeling like I didn't belong and me searching right for something
Mhm.
else as a way to bring me closer to him, because it started with me searching for a new job. So it started with me saying like, okay, maybe I just don't need to be at this consulting company. Maybe like being on the road is not my thing. And so I ended up getting another job with a consulting organization that all of their projects were local. So I could then begin building community. I started going to church more. I joined a small group. I was really involved in Fusion, which was the young adult ministry at Victory. And like those relationships, and that really started having me to I would say, focus more on my relationship with God and allow him to begin doing a work in my heart. And, through this, I went on my first mission trip with Victory at the time. And that mission trip changed my life. Honestly, that mission trip changed my life. And it really helped me to see that, I don't know, like it helped me to see that travel is not, first of all, travel doesn't just have to be recreational, like it can be purposeful. And there are things that you can do that are purposeful and meaningful. Even with the work that you're doing. So I started becoming really unsettled at work with this new job that I had, even though my projects were always local. So I would go to work every day. And I was like, God, like, I want to be a missionary. After this first mission trip, I'm like, I want to be a missionary. Like, I want to travel. Like, I want to use my talents, for good, for something else. I'm not happy here. I don't feel like the work that I'm doing is purposeful. So again, he began forming this discontent in my heart that was no longer just about me, but it was more about me feeling like I wasn't living a life of purpose. It was, it was no longer just about like, oh, I'm not happy here and I'm the only Black woman here and no one looks like me and I can't do tech. But I was really feeling like I wasn't living a life of purpose. Was waiting for the day that I could quit my job. And one day, as I was journaling in the morning, like before I went to work, just spending some time in like meditation and journaling, and I hear the Lord say, today's the day you can quit your job, or basically today's the day you quit your job. And as long as I had been like praying and seeking and discontent and wanting to go somewhere else, I wasn't ready to quit my job today. It was like I wanted more of a runway. I wanted a plan. I wanted someone to come to me with an opportunity, that I could chase after. And that is not what happened. So he was like, today is the day you quit your job. So now, today I'm going to work and I'm crying, but it's for a different reason. It's not because like I just don't want to be there. It's because I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. And I have this decision in front of me. I can either do what God told me to do, or I can not do what God told me to do. Like it was really that simple. Yeah. So I go to work that day and, I'm doing work as usual, but I know that I have to tell my boss that day that I'm going to quit. So I wait until the very end of the day. I go, to him as he's leaving, and I was like, "Can I walk with you downstairs?" So he's getting ready to go. I'm like, let me just ride the elevator down with you. I need to talk to you about something. So we ride the elevator down like to the parking garage together, and then I tell him that hey, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice, and he was like, "What?" He was extremely surprised. And he was like, "Kristina, this is not a walk me to my car conversation." So he was like, let's go sit down. So we went into like the cafeteria and we're talking, and he's like asking me all of these questions, like, where is this coming from? Do you have another job? He thought I had another job offer. I had no other job offer. Like he was like, are we not paying you enough money? Like asking me all of these questions, and I don't have answers for them. And so after he keeps asking me these questions, I was like, well, I just feel like I want to do something else. I want to do something like good. Like, I just feel like I need to be doing something more purposeful. So then he goes, well, I can connect you with my wife. She volunteers with lots of nonprofit organizations. She can connect you with like volunteer opportunities. And then I was like, no, like, I don't think that's it. That's not it. And he's just not accepting anything I'm saying. He thinks it's something deeper. And so finally, I was like, well, I feel like God told me. He doesn't care really about what God has to say. So at this point, he thinks I'm going through like a quarter life crisis. He's like, okay, this girl has lost it, and we need to not have this conversation. He goes, okay, Kristina, I just want you to take a few days off. I'm not going to tell anyone that we had this conversation. I'm not accepting your resignation, but just take some time, whatever time you need, come back to work next week if you need to. But, we'll just kind of leave it at that. So then I go home that day, and now I'm annoyed because I was like, well, God, I tried. It's not my fault that he would not accept my resignation, but at least I tried to do what you told me to do. Yeah. So as I'm trying to have this conversation with God, a friend of mine called. And so I told her, I was like, girl, I tried to quit my job today and my boss wouldn't let me. She's wondering why in the world would I try to quit my job, not having a plan or anywhere to go next.
Yeah.
And I start telling her again about just like my longing to do something of purpose and just not feeling satisfied with the work that I was doing and, all of this stuff. And she mentioned to me a mission trip, which was an 11-month mission trip called the World Race.
11 months.
And 11 month, it's an 11-month mission trip. You
Wow.
go to 11 different countries and you spend 1 month in each country, and it's called the World Race. And she goes, like, the way that you're talking, I feel like you're supposed to do the World Race. So I look up the World Race. It looks amazing. Again, it's 11 months. You spend a month in each country. And I was like, oh, well, this is awesome because I wanted to do missions. Like, this is
Mhm.
what I wanted to do. So this must be what God, wants me to do. So I go back to work. Again, I put in my 2 weeks notice, and now I can say, this is what I'm going to do next.
Yeah.
Everyone is really excited about this World Race. They're like, oh, this seems cool. They think I'm going to take off for a year and come back to work, like
Yeah.
almost take a sabbatical, and come back to work after completing the race. And so that was my plan. So I had no idea, again, like that I was going to start a nonprofit organization. I think I'm going to be a long-term missionary. And the only thing was that I quit my job in January, really the end of December, early January of 2013, the end of December 2012. And then the World Race that I was going to go on didn't start until September of 2013.
Mhm.
And that would leave me 9 months unemployed. So I was like, okay, God, what am I supposed to do with this time? I have a house, I have bills, like I have things that I need to take care of. And God let me know that this is the start of a faith journey that we're going to go on together. And I think I'm still on this faith journey, to be honest,
Yeah.
but it just led me through like this journey and this process of trusting God, like doing scary things and knowing that, like my faith can get me through it. It helped to strengthen my relationship with the Lord. It helped me to see him as provider, as protector, as the giver of dreams and visions. And, that 9-month period, along with the World Race that I went on, really helped to inform me in knowing that God is the one who gave me the gifts that I have in technology. He's the one who like set everything in place. And that time, my career, my college degree would not go to waste. And so I knew that, I was going to be using tech in some type of way. I was going to be using my degree in some type of way. I just didn't know how or in what way it would be, but I knew it wouldn't be wasteful. And after I came back from the World Race is when the Lord started showing me that everything that I went through as a Black woman in tech, as the first person to graduate with a computer engineering degree, as someone who has made leaps and jumps and an entrepreneurial spirit, and even my missions, my love for missions and purpose in that way was all a part of God really grooming me to, again, give hope to other girls who will grow up like me, who look like me, who need the types of opportunities that tech provide, but might be afraid to step into it because they don't have anyone, who looks like them who can do it. And so it wasn't until probably a couple years after I came back from the World Race that God really told me and showed me that I was supposed to start my own nonprofit organization.
Wow. I wish I could. We had more time to hear more about the world.
Yeah, the World Race.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds fast. We have to talk about that the next time. So let's talk about hype.
Yeah.
What's going on with hype right now? You just recently won an award.
Yeah.
And so what's going on with hype? What's going on with the
Yeah. So
girls?
hype, I started hype in 2017, in September 2017. So we're almost, 5 years old. And, like we're based in Atlanta, Georgia. But I would say over the past couple of years, we've definitely grown significantly. We have, staff who works for the organization now. We're reaching more students. We're getting a little bit more, just kind of, I would say, brand recognition, and we're receiving grants and things like that. And as you mentioned, one of the most recent grants that we received was from Goldman Sachs. It's the 1 billion Black women of impact grant that they have, and so they Goldman Sachs kind of has this mission to invest $1 billion in Black women, Black women founders and entrepreneurs who are doing work to also support Black women and Black girls and Black communities. And so I think for this grant that we recently received, it's a nationwide grant. They had a little over 800 applicants, and they chose 50 organizations and founders nationwide. And so we were one of those 50 that received funding and just kind of recognition. And we're going to continue to get other resources and support from Goldman Sachs as a result of it for over the next 2 years.
Wow, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. So some of the programs you guys are doing, I was kind of going through your website and I saw that you teach some kids coding and some of the other things you guys are doing with the young ladies.
Yeah, so we really do focus on technology education through like coding and computer science. So we introduce students to web development, where, front end and back end web development. We, do this block-based programming called Scratch, just to kind of help students understand computational thinking and like data structures and things like that at a younger age. And now we're introducing robotics to the curriculum. So we have students kind of working on it's Arduino, but it's kind of like C++, but it's a programming language for robotics and electronics. And we do that through an after-school program for middle and or high school students. We have summer camps that we're, currently in the thick of at the moment that we offer for students. And, we've had, and I'm looking forward to bringing back in 2023, the international experience, which is what my missions experience kind of ties into, because part of I would say the initial draw to Hype from a student perspective was the opportunity for them to travel overseas. And so through our after school program, we teach girls how to code, we teach them web development and computer science, and then we pay for their passports and their lodging and their transportation. We take them overseas, and then they lead a 1-week coding camp for other kids overseas. And the interesting thing is the first place that we went was on an international trip was Nicaragua, with a school there called the Lifelink School, which was the first mission trip that I went on when I went on the mission trip at Victory. And so we were able to bring students to Nicaragua to lead a coding camp there, and we just kind of see full circle, how those relationships evolved. But yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So how do you find students? You partner with some of the schools, or how's that work?
Yeah, we partner with schools and other after-school programs, other nonprofit organizations that are youth serving. Originally we were just kind of recruiting students by word of mouth, friends of friends, but now our cohorts are a little bit larger, and so we partner with schools and they recruit students for us, and we do our programming with our educational partners.
Sweet. So how can one find out more about your program, and you're like a student, for example? Any tips as far as anyone that's watching, or even a parent of a student that sees potential in the STEM field? What are your insights or suggestions on how they can get involved?
Yeah. So students and parents and schools or anyone really can find out about our organization and our programs. Like, we keep everything on our website. So it's www.gethype.org. And we promote things over on Instagram as well. Our Instagram is at gethype_inc. For like incorporated. So at gethype_inc. And that I would say is the way that you can kind of find out whether or not, like, when our programs are starting, whether or not there's a location or a school that we're working with that is near you, or that a school that you go to. We do have cohort models. And so our students kind of join the program as a cohort, because like building community is really important to us. And, we do try to focus on more than just coding and computer science, and being able to establish real meaningful relationships with our students is key. And so we have a cohort that starts in the fall. It's 12 weeks long. Students meet once a week for 12 weeks and learn a skill and graduate from the program. And then we have another one that starts in the spring. And so students can essentially kind of go through our programs like year after year. So we have some students who've been with us for 3 years because they've learned different programming languages. Then they've gone on to participate in our leadership academy. And some of them come back and work for us. So this summer we have high school students who are serving as teaching assistants for our summer camps, but they've gone through our programs as well. So even though we had to pause traveling overseas because of COVID, we still incorporate this train the trainer model, and we still give our high schoolers a chance to come back and teach some of the things that they've learned.
That is so awesome. I'm really inspired about what you're doing, and fulfilling your purpose, what God has given you. So, as we close out, what's some words of encouragement for those that are watching about, finding their God-given purpose? Sometimes I think we go through life, and I mentioned this earlier before, we kind of go through the motions. We go to school, go to college, we'll pick haphazardly sometimes a major, graduate, find a job, have a family, and then, and then die. I mean, I don't want to be, I mean,
No, yeah, yeah. Go through the motion.
So, I mean, now your path was kind of fascinating. But just share a little bit about, how God has kind of helped you find that purpose, and hopes, and hopefully that can inspire others to find what God has called them to do.
Yeah, so I believe a lot of this because of my experiences, but God is so intimately and intricately involved in every day, every minute of our lives. And he doesn't allow things to happen by happenstance or by mistake. And I can definitely kind of look back in retrospect and see, all of the steps that God, allowed me to step on, or all the things that he allowed me to go through for his purpose. But I would say that the reason why I can kind of go back and see that there was purpose in everything is, because I did listen to, even when it was just a small voice, or even when it was just like something inside of me really just encouraging me to, when I chose computer engineering, might have seemed like it was my own voice, and it might have seemed like it was in my own head, but I was just like, no, like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to be afraid, to step out and do it. And then as I began feeling discontentment with work and really began seeking the Lord, for purpose, I began seeing that discontentment as something that he gave me, and wanted to just kind of pay attention to that. And so advice that I would say is to pay attention to the themes of your life. Definitely kind of surround yourself with community and people who can also speak into different things and themes that they might be seeing in your life, and to not neglect the still small voice that's inside your head or inside your heart, because it's something that God is doing in you to build something through you, and to create purpose through you. I heard someone say yesterday, and I think it's so true, that that purpose is not something we determine, but it is something that we discover, and we discover it through saying yes, right, and just kind of moving and doing the things that God has had us to do. And what God does is he allows us to kind of make moves and make steps in the forward motion, but we understand them looking back. And so we might not understand everything that like you're doing right now as you're moving, as you're making steps. Even if you don't understand it all, you're just kind of moving forward. When you look back, you will begin to see and understand like the purpose and the reason why you had to go through the things that you went through.
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, it makes sense as you look back.
Yeah.
But as you're going through it, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
But sometimes,
I would use it as encouragement as well, because there was when I quit my job, like, it was the dumbest thing ever. You know what I mean? Like, it made no sense, and no one, like, there were so many people who were curious and like just really thought it was weird, that I would have done that. It made no sense. Today, it makes all of the sense.
Yeah.
And so, there's encouragement in knowing that it's not always going to make sense. Most of the time, it probably won't, but do it anyway.
Yeah.
Do it anyway.
And the key thing is hearing God first. I mean, don't go out and quit your job just for the sake.
Yes, I tell people all the time, don't just, God's not telling everybody to quit their job, so don't just go and do that. But there might be some, and start small, First I went from one job to the next job, and saw God in that. But yes, he's not telling, I am not condoning the message that we all need to quit our jobs.
No, it's like, Kristina told me to quit my job. No.
Yes, no, she didn't. I told you to surround yourself, right, with people and wisdom and friends and good counsel first. Do that first. But
Well, that's
yes,
so awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, I'm inspired, and I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing, and seeing success, and how God is blessing all those young ladies that are going to be, future scientists and future leaders and so forth. And you're pouring into them, based on what God has poured into you. So that's that's all you can really ask for, is wow, just being a part of God's plan, and being a blessing to others. So thank you for your
amen.
faithfulness and your faith, for sure, for being able to step out there as God was kind of directing you, and not really having a plan in place. So that's awesome. So thank you for being a part of God Dreamers.
Thank
Best
you.
success. God bless all the things that you're doing. And for y'all that are watching this episode, if you want to know more about Kristina and Hype, she said to check out her website. If you want to get involved in helping her or donating or whatever that may be, get involved and make a difference. And of course, with God Dreamers, like I said, I always say, if you know of anybody, or if you want to share your story as far as some of the things that God is doing in your life, as far as purpose, feel free to reach out to us through social media, and we'd be more than happy to hear what you have to say and share your story. So anyway, until next time, God bless you guys. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye.